Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen and enjoy my stories every day. The candlelight flickered across our table at L'Amour, casting soft shadows that danced on the crisp white tablecloth. It was our 5th wedding anniversary, and every detail was crafted to celebrate the life Mia and I had built together. From the bouquet of her favorite lilacs to the gentle hum of a violin in the background, everything was perfect, or so it seemed. I raised my glass, the wine catching the light as I looked into Mia's eyes. To us, I toasted, my voice soft but filled with emotion. To us, she echoed, her smile not quite reaching her eyes as she glanced down at her lap. I frowned slightly, noting how her fingers danced nervously on her phone screen beneath the table. The waiter approached, his presence a welcome distraction as he detailed the specials with enthusiasm. Yet, Mia's attention was elsewhere. Her gaze flitted back to her phone every few seconds, a crease forming between her brows. "Mia, is everything okay?" I asked, concern lacing my tone. The words were barely out when I saw her screen light up again, her fingers swiftly typing a response. "Just work, darling," she replied, a bit too quickly, sliding the phone under her thigh. "Let's not let it spoil our night." I nodded, though unease gnawed at me. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of forced conversation and strained smiles. As dessert arrived, a chocolate fondant that oozed warmth, I decided to ignore the nagging doubts clouding the evening. However, as Mia excused herself to visit the ladies' room, curiosity overcame me. Her phone, half hidden under the napkin, buzzed incessantly. It was as if the universe itself was prompting me to take a peek. With a deep breath, I reached over and picked it up. The screen lit up to reveal a message that made my heart stop. An image so shocking, so out of place, it showed Mia in a bizarre, red room, her body entwined with a stranger's, chains dangling ominously around them. The caption seared itself into my memory, "I want to do it again, Nemesis." Rage coursed through me, hot and blinding. The pieces fell into place. Her distant moods, late nights at work, secretive texts. It all made sense now, but the truth was a jagged pill to swallow. When Mia returned, finding her phone in my hands, her face drained of color. "Mark, How long, Mia?" My voice was a venomous whisper, the image still displayed between us. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, but her words fell flat, the lie too frail to stand. "Save it," I snapped, pushing back from the table. The restaurant around us faded into a haze of noise and movement. Nothing mattered but the betrayal that pulsed like a livid wound. I walked out that night, the image of Mia's betrayal etched into my mind. The drive home was a blur of anger and shattered plans. Our perfect life, our dreams, had crumbled in one evening, and there was no going back. The morning after our anniversary disaster, the sun seemed cruel in its brightness. I hadn't slept, the image of Mia's betrayal looping endlessly in my mind. My phone was silent, and I imagined hers was buzzing relentlessly with calls she would not answer. I knew I needed help, so I called my sister, Liz, who had always been my confidant. As soon as she answered, her voice laced with concern, I didn't waste any time. "Liz, it's over between Mia and me," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "What?" "Mark, what happened?" Her alarm was palpable even through the phone. I met Liz at a small cafe, the kind where the booths offered privacy and the coffee was strong. The bell jingled as I entered, my heart heavy. She stood as I approached, her expression tight with worry. I told her everything, from the suspicious texts to the damning photo. Liz listened, her eyes widening with shock and anger. "This is insane, Mark." "Mia. It doesn't fit. Are you sure there's no mistake?" "It was her, Liz. On the phone, in that room." The words were bile in my throat. Liz reached across the table, her hand squeezing mine. "We'll figure this out. First, you need a lawyer, and I think I know just the person." She recommended a family friend, David Russo, who was known for his no-nonsense approach in legal battles. "He'll keep things discreet," Liz assured me. The meeting with David was scheduled briskly, and by afternoon, I was sitting across from him in his office, the walls lined with books and accolades. David was a middle-aged man with a sharp gaze that seemed to cut straight to the heart of the matter. "Infidelity cases are messy, Mark. What's your end goal here?" David asked, his hands clasped on the desk. "I want a divorce, and I want it clean. No dragging through the mud," I responded, my voice firmer than I felt. David nodded, jotting down notes. "I'll need every piece of evidence you can provide. Texts, emails, any interactions with this nemesis. It all helps." I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation settle over me. As I left his office, my phone finally buzzed. It was Mia. "Mark, please, we need to talk. I can explain everything," the text read. The plea was like a hook in my chest, but the betrayal was too deep. I typed a response, my fingers trembling slightly. "Talking time is over, Mia. You'll hear from my lawyer." That evening, as I sat alone in our now too quiet house, another piece of the puzzle landed in my inbox. An anonymous email with a video attachment showed Mia entering the red room, the same chains visible in the background. The sender was unknown, the message chillingly simple: "Thought you should see the full story." The plot was thickening, and as I watched the video, a cold resolve settled over me. Whoever this nemesis was, finding out his real identity was now more than a necessity, it was a mission. As the digital clock flipped to 3:17 a.m., my eyes were still wide open, fixed on the ceiling, the darkness around seeming less consuming than the one inside me. The video had changed everything again, deepening the mystery in my resolve. The morning was gray, the clouds hanging low as if mirroring my turmoil. I decided to step out, the confined spaces of the house suffocating me. The city seemed oblivious to my crisis, people bustling about, lost in the mundanity of their daily routines. My first stop was the private investigator's office I had contacted last night after viewing the video. Tom Reynolds had come highly recommended for situations that needed discretion and swift results. His office was a cramped space above a Chinese restaurant, the smell of spices seeping through the walls. Tom was a no-nonsense man, his eyes sharp under bushy eyebrows. "I saw the video you sent," he said, motioning for me to sit. "You got enemies, Mr. Morgan?" "Just one, it seems," I replied, handing him a printout of the text exchanges between Mia and Nemesis. Tom studied them, his brow furrowing. "We can start by tracing this number, see where it leads." "Any idea who Nemesis might be?" "None. It's like he's a ghost," I admitted, frustration gnawing at me. "Well, ghosts leave trails too. Give me a few days. I'll start with the basics, phone records, public databases. See what pops up." As I left Tom's office, my phone buzzed. It was Liz. "You okay?" her message read. "Going to meet Russo again. Might have more for him," I texted back, feeling the weight of my sister's concern even through the digital words. At Russo's office, the atmosphere was starkly professional. David sat behind his desk, papers spread out like a battlefield. "You got something else for me?" he asked without preamble. "Yes, there might be more to Mia's activities than just an affair," I said, explaining about the anonymous video and Tom Reynolds. David nodded, his expression grim. "This complicates your case. If there's a bigger play at hand, we need to tread carefully. Have you thought about any kind of settlement you want from this divorce?" "I don't want her money. I want the truth," I stated firmly. "Truth is a tricky business in court, Mark. But I'll work with what you get me. Keep me updated with the investigator's findings." I spent the next few days in a haze of waiting and anxiety, jumping every time my phone rang. Finally, Tom called me back in. "Got something on Nemesis," he said as soon as I walked in. His screen showed a series of transactions and phone records. Your guy has connections in some rather dark places. Seems to be involved in underground clubs, some risky activities. Can we find him? I asked, my heart racing. Close. I traced the transactions to a club downtown. The Labyrinth. Ever heard of it? I shook my head, the name sending a shiver down my spine. It's very exclusive, very secretive. Hard to get into without the right introductions. Then we'll find a way, I said, the pieces of the puzzle slowly forming a clearer picture. I'm going in there. Tom raised an eyebrow. Not without backup, you aren't. I know someone who can get you in, keep you safe. As I left his office, the plan forming in my head, I realized this was no longer just about a divorce. It was about unmasking Nemesis and discovering why Mia was really part of that twisted world. The deeper I dove, the darker the waters became, but I couldn't turn back now. Not until I had the full truth. The night air was chilly as I stood across from the Labyrinth, the club's name glowing ominously in neon red. Dressed in dark clothing, I blended into the shadows, watching the bouncers let in a select few. Tom's contact, a wiry man named Eddie, was supposed to meet me here. Mark? A voice whispered from the darkness. I turned to see Eddie, his eyes scanning the area cautiously. Let's do this, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through my veins. Inside, the labyrinth was a maze of corridors and secluded rooms, the air thick with a mix of perfume and something more sinister. Eddie led me through the throng of people, his familiarity with the place evident. We're heading to the VIP area. That's where your man hangs out, Eddie murmured, slipping through the crowd with ease. As we approached a guarded door, Eddie nodded to the bouncer, who let us through without a word. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the walls adorned with abstract art that seemed to pulse with the music. And there, in the center of the room, was Nemesis. He was younger than I expected, his face arrogant, his eyes cold. Beside him, laughing at something he said, was Mia. Seeing her there, so at ease in this underworld, fueled my anger. Mia. I called out, my voice cutting through the music. She turned, her smile fading as she saw me. Nemesis looked up, his expression one of amused curiosity. Mark, what are you? Enough, Mia. I know everything, I said, stepping forward. Eddie stayed close, watching for any trouble. Nemesis stood, stepping toward me. You know nothing. Mia is here because she wants to be. Aren't you, darling? Mia's eyes flickered with something like fear, then resignation. Yes, I chose this, she said, her voice barely audible. Chose what? Tell me. I demanded, my gaze fixed on her. It's not just cheating, Mark. This, she gestured around, is my world now. It's where I belong. Nemesis smirked. She's mine now. You really think you can just walk in here and take her back? Eddie tensed beside me, but I raised a hand to stop him. I'm not here to take anyone back. I came for the truth. Mia looked at me, then at Nemesis. I'm sorry, Mark. I thought I could keep it separate. I thought I could have both lives. But I was wrong. You're sorry. I laughed bitterly. You're sorry for lying, for dragging me into your deception. Nemesis moved closer, his eyes gleaming. She's not going back to you, old man. You might as well leave. I looked at Mia, the woman I had loved, now a stranger. I don't want her back. Not anymore. But this, I pulled out my phone, showing them the video from the anonymous email, will end tonight. I'm shutting this down. Nemesis laughed, but his laughter faltered as I dialed a number. Within minutes, the sound of sirens approached, the flashing lights visible through the windows. You called the cops. Mia's voice was a mix of incredulity and fear. I did. I might not be able to save you from your choices, Mia, but I can save others from falling into this trap. As the police stormed the club, I watched Mia and Nemesis being led away. The pain of betrayal lingered, but there was also relief. Relief that it was finally over, that I could start to rebuild. I walked out of the labyrinth and into the cold night, alone but free. Mia had made her choice, and I had made mine. We were part of each other's pasts, but now, our futures would be worlds apart. As I looked back one last time, I realized that the labyrinth wasn't just the club. It had been our life together, twisted and dark. And I was finally out.